right, welcome. We're live again with another podcast episode of the Embracing Joy podcast, and I have a very special guest, Dr. Erica Bove. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You
Bove, right?
did.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And today's topic is such a very important topic that's close to our heart, and it's a special ingredient to joy, which is self compassion. And Dr. Erica Bove is a board certified OBGYN and reproductive endocrinologist. So she cares for physicians with infertility as a coach and has also had a practice as a reproductive endocrinologist. So she knows the struggles that women physicians go through, especially with infertility. And not just physicians, that's common. Well, it's a problem that many women may go through and they may suffer silently, right? So it's just a very, she's compassionate in her subject area, of caring for these women because it can be such a stressful time.
Mm.
And this topic of self compassion is so important. It's a key ingredient for joy, but it's also something that women physicians, especially those who are going through infertility, may struggle with, right? Having that self compassion. So that's the topic for today. If you're listening now, please make sure to comment in, questions that you may have or comment breakthroughs that you may get from this episode and share this episode with a friend. If you're watching the replay, just make sure to share this episode with a friend or and comment, and we'll get to you later as well. So thank you, Dr. Erica Bo.
Thanks, Dr.
So
Magda. It's so great to be here. I just love any chance I have to be in the room with you.
thank you. Thank you, because it's all about joy, and self-compassion is just a key ingredient for joy.
Mm.
When we are not our biggest critics, right, it can make it hard to find joy, right? So
Yeah.
having that
I think it's
self-compassionate
contagious too. I just wanted to
yeah,
say I think joy is contagious, and I mean, every day I do my meditations, and you are a vision board for me for joy, and I think about remembering to seek those moments to slow down, to be in the present moment. Even last night, I had a moment where I was so in the moment, I thought of you because I was like, "This is joy. There's nowhere I'd rather be than in this moment right now." And I really think it helps to surround ourselves with people who have that perspective because otherwise it's just like a train and everything rolls by. And then you're like, where did this 10, 15, 20 years go? So I think, thank you for what you do because it reminds us all to slow down and really experience what otherwise might pass us by.
oh, thank you. I mean, I really, really appreciate that, especially now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I appreciate that. So let's go into a little bit of what self-compassion means to you, Dr. Bo. Let's
absolutely. I have read so many books about self compassion. And I think during various phases of my life, I've been sort of offered the choice. It's like, do you choose a more self compassionate approach or do you try continuing that, inner critic to see if that works? And every single time, self compassion is the way, right?
Mhm.
You know, the best definition that I've really heard of self compassion is treating yourself as your best friend would treat you. That
Mhm.
resonates the most. That comes from Dr. Kristen Neff's work. And when I
Mhm.
think about, as she breaks down the three key elements of mindful self compassion, the first is self kindness, which is the opposite of self judgment. The
Mhm.
second is, well, in no particular order, common humanity, right? That notion that other people experience similar things and we
Mhm.
can also suffer well together, if you will. And then also the third is mindfulness. So really like, here is my cup of cold water. When I hold it, when I feel that temperature, when I take a drink from it, it
Mhm.
really draws me into the present moment. So those three components, self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness, those are the three definitions of what, the three components of mindful self-compassion. And she has a whole book and a workbook and everything. But when I think about what's my compass to orient me to mindful self-compassion, I think,
Mhm.
hers is the best that I've seen.
Mm. Mhm. That's interesting because I didn't know about her, but I'd heard, before, like in times where I was very self-critical, I had a mentor that just said, help try to see yourself as God sees you, right? Which is like,
That's right.
and that's as someone. So what that means, it's not just God, but for any religion, it's what seeing yourself as someone who's unconditionally loving, compassionate, kind, how that person or that entity sees you, right? So if we see ourselves as that, like a child, right? So you're a child of a higher being and you're loved fully and unconditionally, right? Even if you make a mistake, you're still loved. To try to see yourself as that, like, oh, you're just learning, right? We're on life, we're all learning how to do life, right? So, and
That's right.
we, yeah, we're all learning how to do life. Yeah, so that's kind of how she clarified in my mind, like, "Oh, that's more about self-compassion," but also as your best friend, like, how does your best friend see you? Or if how would you talk to yourself if
Yeah.
you were your best
Yeah.
friend? Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
so
you're right. I mean, I pray and meditate every single morning. And I think, I truly ask myself that question, like, where does my worth come from? Right. And is it from some external outcome or from some achievement? I mean, this has been a huge theme in my life is like,
mhm,
I am worthy just as I am. I don't need to
mhm,
prove myself. I don't need any external validation. Like, and this
mhm,
is my wisdom tradition. I believe I'm a child of God. And so when I think about it that way, even as I was thinking about preparation for this talk today, like,
mhm,
just sort of where how my joy really does emanate from my spiritual strength and the belief that I'm not alone in this world.
mhm,
It really is all connected for me. And, in Love and Science, I always say this is it's not a religious program, but it's a spiritual program. And some belief in a higher power is going to serve you as we look at self compassion, as we look at surrender, as we look at like the big picture, if that makes sense.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so important to have that. It's I think it's for me, it's also been important because it helps guide you and be less critical of yourself because we are connected. We are connected in so many ways. So,
that's
I love
right.
that. So,
And I
I
will
think
say, oh, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
just what one thing that coaching could do, because I know, you're a coach too, is just for the listeners, is that really coaching can turn that inner critic into an inner coach. And so I think of a coach is loving, is supportive, holds space, sees you as you are, right? Maybe not as you see yourself.
Mhm,
And, so often we have that inner critical voice, like, you're inadequate. This isn't good enough. All these areas are not good enough. And I
mhm,
think when we can actually try to have that inner voice be more objective. Okay, what's going well? Where do I need to grow? Where do I need more support? Where am I doing my best? Maybe where is there room that I can, do this, and maybe not even in a better way, but in a different way, in a way that is more aligned with my values. That's really what coaching does. And, the funny thing is, I'm a runner. And as I
mhm,
have my mindset has shifted in other aspects of my life, one of the biggest misconceptions about self compassion, and I think this applies to our motherhood conversation, is like, this misconception like, oh, you'll be slacking, oh, you're giving yourself too much rope, oh, you're gonna
mhm,
become slower and lazy, and all the things your brain offers you, when our inner critic is like, no, I've got to
mhm,
keep abusing you, essentially.
mhm,
But when I started like really saying, Erica, you're doing great, like, great pace, like,
mhm,
your breathing is awesome, you love challenges, you love hills, you love rain, like whatever it is that my brain offers me when I'm coaching myself in those moments, I actually looked at my times and I was like, "Oh, I'm faster." Like, because that's I
mhm,
just wanted to point that out because we always think like, "Oh, we're gonna be softies if we adopt this self-compassionate approach. We gotta stay on guard, we gotta stay tough, stay strong, stay hard on ourselves." But if
mhm,
you actually look at the data show that we free up brain space for
mhm,
creative solutions. Our brains work better. We are more not only are we more loving to ourselves and other people, but we actually think better. And even I'm not saying we become self-compassionate so that we perform better, but the interesting reality is that it often works that way. So it's kind of wild, this notion. We're not becoming softies. We're truly just learning how to love ourselves. And I always say I'm still me. Like I'm still that person who loves challenges. I'm still that person who tries to excel at whatever I do. So that's not going away. It's just the how and how it feels to go through that that's different.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I love that you mentioned that because it is a common misconception that, "Oh, you're being too kind to yourself," no, you cannot be too kind to yourself.
that's right.
You
You
cannot,
cannot.
and that yeah, you cannot be too
It's
kind.
a journey, right? Which is where I agree. Self-compassion.
Yeah, yeah, because that self-critic can lead to so many other worse things, right? Like depression or, you know, and it can also make your runtime worse, right? If you're someone, "You're never gonna win," like that, that voice,
Yeah.
you don't want that voice. You want the voice that says,
No,
"Wow, look at you. You improved from last week. You ran a mile last week and now you ran a mile and a half. Wow, look how good you're doing,"
that's
and
right.
pushes you along. So
Yeah,
that's so
and I think
important.
it affects relationships too. I think that if we can really give ourselves grace, we can often then extend that to other people. And the converse is true. The more critical we are of ourselves, we have these like unreasonable standards for other people sometimes. And I think that's been a learning point for me is to really look at that, to say, okay, where can I lighten up on those other people in my life who deserve
Mhm.
my love and self compassion too? Right.
Mhm. Right, right. And I think that's a key too. That you, of course, we have to work on it for ourselves first, but you
Right.
may see that, oh, I can give these people a break. I don't, if I'm super critical on myself, you're going to be super critical on others and not even
Right.
realize, right? Not
Right.
even realize it until you make the change, which is what, you did. And I
Yeah.
realized that
I
too. And
try. It's a daily discipline.
right, right, because you can't expect, we expect a lot from others. Yeah. And you expect a
Right.
lot
And
from
sometimes unfairly. Sometimes unfairly. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So what would you say is excuse me. What would you say is like a tangible practice that you would recommend for a woman going through infertility to just tap into a self-compassionate lens? What would you say?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think it's really it starts with source and it starts with like who am I
Mhm.
even independent of this fertility journey, right? Like so just for me, for my clients and my patients, I always say like sit in the morning and plug in spiritually whatever that means for you and have your mantras that are self-affirming. And so we do a lot of work, in my coaching practice in terms
Mhm.
of how do we talk to ourselves? Okay, then how
Mhm.
does that self-talk then influence how we feel? Right? If we're
Mhm.
telling ourselves you're never going to get pregnant, this isn't going to work, you waited too long, you need to lose weight, like whatever it is that we are, oh, you're too stressed out, whatever it is. I mean, our minds are just full of this self-critical vial, right? If you think about it. And
Mhm.
so when we actually shine a light on that and we're like, oh, that's making me feel guilty, shameful, resentful, hopeless,
Mhm.
powerless, like this, those are
Mhm.
all low vibration frequency states. But we don't even know 95% of what goes on happens in our our subconscious, right? So
Mhm.
if we can actually shine a light on those thoughts that are happening under the surface, that critic, and the feelings that result from that, we can start to see why we're showing up the way that we are, why we are irritable, why we're resentful, why we are, triggered so easily at various things. And then so then we start to think, okay, well, how do I want to feel? If I can't change the fact that I'm going through this fertility journey, which nobody would ever wish on anybody, right? But it's like it's one of those things like this is what life is presenting to me at this moment in time. This is my cross to bear, so to speak, right? Like, so how do I want to feel in the context of that situation? And,
Mhm.
many people will say, I want to feel accepting. Many people will say, I want to feel calm or peaceful.
Mhm.
Sometimes people even say, I want to feel empowered to make good decisions. That's often a stretch, but it's really
Mhm.
just sort of, okay, even if you can't change the circumstance, if you can't change infertility or recurrent loss as such,
Mhm.
how do you want to feel? What energy do you want to bring in the fertility clinic? How do you
Yeah.
want to feel as you're waiting for those test results? Let's try to embody that. And then what
Mhm.
thoughts would you need to think to be able to get to that feeling state? Because, our
Mhm.
feelings are not just reflexes. They actually stem from our thoughts. And if we can really decide ahead of time, and this isn't about just like fooling ourselves or tricking ourselves. This is truly about saying I get to choose. I get to choose how I show up, and
Mhm.
I want to show up accepting. Okay, well, what would I need to think to feel accepting today? Maybe it's I'm going to be okay no matter what, or maybe it's I'm doing my best, or maybe
Mhm.
it's I know God has a plan for me. Like whatever it is that then
Mhm.
allows that state of acceptance, then we then have that higher vibration frequency. Then we do things, our actions then flow from that sort of higher state, and then the results often then flow from that feeling of acceptance,
Mhm.
going to the doctor's appointments, taking the medications, reaching out
Mhm.
to people for support, rather than being stuck in this low vibration frequency where it's like nothing's ever going to work, and then our brains seek out the actions, the people, that whatever to stay in that negativity. So,
Mhm.
this is where the coaching really makes a difference because we get
Mhm.
to choose. So I say, when you identify what those mantras are for you, and I work with people to create their own personalized set of mantras, which of course we can update over time.
Mhm.
Those things, when we plant those seeds in the morning, just as we do like on a yoga mat, my intention is for peace, my intention is to surrender, whatever it is. It's amazing how we then see the fruits of that throughout the day, if that makes sense.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I love that. It's getting your day started and making an intention to stop those self-critical thoughts by not
Yeah.
just stopping them, saying like, "I'm not gonna think bad today," right? Because
Yeah.
if we just say, "I'm not gonna think negatively today," without putting in the positive words or the positive thoughts that should replace them, then we're
Right.
still gonna think negatively, right? So I
Right.
love that you start with that mantra, and
Yeah,
you know.
and I will say, like, a key component of this, like, the negative stuff is there for a reason, so I think that we have to honor that, we have to get curious about ourselves, like, why is that thought there in the in the first place, and so, one thing I help my people with is processing their feelings if they feel particularly hopeless, if they feel sad, if they feel angry, like, it's not to say, like, "Oh, anger, shut the door on you and open the door to happiness and joy." It's not that, it's like anxiety. Okay, anxiety, I a part of me is feeling anxious right now. That makes sense because I really want this to work. And so, thank you, anxiety, for trying to protect me. I see what you're doing. So again, we have to get curious. We have to open up a non-judgmental space to notice what's even going on in the first place. To be like, oh,
Mhm,
isn't that interesting? I feel like maybe I'm irritable today. I wonder if there's something a little deeper than that. And like get really curious about that in a non like not just like, oh my gosh, why am I so irritable? Why can't I just relax or calm down? But like, I'm irritable. There's a reason why. Like, how can I understand myself better? Allowing
mhm,
that anger, irritability, trying to understand where it might come from, and then let it go. Because only when
mhm,
we let that go can we then say, okay, higher vibration energy, now you are allowed here. Now you are welcome.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, that's so important. So, yeah, I think that is key, right? It's a multiple keys, but it's a process. So that's why coaching is so important to also help people through that process.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's interesting even thinking about self-compassion, like having self-compassion for the full range of our emotions. Like, internal family systems would say a part of me is feeling scared. Like there was probably like a 3-year-old little girl in there, even though it's a 35-year-old woman, 40-year-old woman who's trying to get pregnant. There's like a 3-year-old little girl in there who's scared,
mhm,
who's afraid of being abandoned or like whatever it is. Like we are so complex as humans. And so until we really nurture all those emotions in those spaces, like that's where the healing is. Like, we're not gonna heal unless we can address those things, and it's not like it's, like, one and done. It's not like, "Okay, anxiety, I've let you go, bye forever."
coming
The
back.
next day might come, but,
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
have to acknowledge, "This is a non-judgmental
yeah.
space. I'm noticing I'm anxious. What can I do to shift that balance? What can I do to nurture myself?"
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, but for I would say, with that being said, maybe one of the key, like one, because of course it's complicated, but the first step would be just try to see yourself, look in the mirror and see yourself as your best friend might see you. Or if you notice you're having that critical voice, be like, you know what? I wouldn't talk to my best friend this way. And I can be my own best friend. And I'm going to speak to myself a little bit differently today. Right. So just to slowly get
Yeah.
started.
As you're saying that, Dr. Makda, like I think about, my good friend Jenny and I, we always like read a book together every year. And one year, because we're both divorced, and so obviously that comes with a lot of pain and lots of feelings to navigate. And so one year we read this book by this woman, and it's like letters, and she has all these terms of endearment that she uses to talk to herself. It's like,
Mhm,
hello, love, it's me again, or hello, sweetheart, or hello, dear one. I love that one, dear one. And I
mhm,
think, even if we just talk to ourselves, like, with that term of endearment ahead of whatever we're about to say, it just
mhm.
softens the whole environment. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, that actually sounds great because I'm thinking like, "Hey, love, it's
Yeah,
time to have
right?
dishes. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
"Hey, gorgeous. Hey, beautiful," "What's it for breakfast today?" I
Right,
just think it just adds this, like, lighthearted, loving energy as we talk to ourselves that, might not be there otherwise, right?
right, right. I think that would be a key, and I think I'm gonna adopt the, "Hey, love, this is what you should do today." Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about the journey, right, for infertility. So, it
Mhm.
can be a journey. It's like some women, it may be several years,
That's right.
and 1 year, how I think you talked a little bit about how women may be able to nurture joy alongside it, but can you kind of repeat that or just kind of
Yeah,
narrow it?
so I think sometimes there's this notion that like we have to be hyper vigilant 100% of the time, or because this is such a dark time of life that we don't deserve joy, we don't deserve happiness. If we even hope that it's possible that a little embryo could take, that we're sort of setting ourselves up for disappointment and what I call kind of like a fall from grace, right? If we hope it's going to happen and it doesn't happen, that's a
Mhm,
lot sadder and hard to deal with than if we don't expect it to work from the first place. And then we're just like, sad, but just, oh, well, this is what I expected anyway. But sort of the danger in that is if we don't hope it's going to happen, then we don't vibrate at that frequency. We don't allow ourselves to be receptive to the process. And then sometimes we do things and self
mhm,
sabotage and all those things. And again, I'm not here to say that a negative pregnancy test means that we've done something wrong, but I'm saying that we need to do everything in our power to optimize the chances of this working,
mhm.
right? So that's where I think we need to really like raise our vibration to allow for the possibility of it all. Did I answer your question or is there more to that?
Yeah, no, you did. You did. And it's about, like raising that vibration in terms of like and not doing the negative self-talk. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yes, and starting with the belief, because thoughts are just beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts we have over and over again, right? So I
mhm,
might have the inherent belief I don't even know about that I don't deserve joy. I'll be vulnerable for a second. I actually have one from my own life that back in the day, I used to think that fun was meant for other people. And that it was like other people who deserve the fun. And I was the studious one. I was the one who just needed to put my head down and study and get the good grades and be on this sacrificial mission of being a doctor. And I mean, I look back and I think about it, that was kind of how I was able to channel my energy and tune out all the other distractions. But
mhm,
the darker side of that coin is that the shadow side is that I really didn't deserve for a long time that I deserve fun. And that's
mhm,
created a whole host of other problems. And so as
mhm,
this whole lot of therapy in the last 10 years and emerging from the divorce and all the things, like I had to do a lot of work to be like, well, where do we believe come from that I don't deserve fun? Like I think I might deserve fun. And so through therapy and coaching and everything, I was able to make that transformation. And now I have this mantra, again, back to the mantras, where I
mhm.
say, I bring the fun. And so, like, whether it's like a New Year's party and I bring all the like, paraphernalia, the things that make noise and the hats, or whether it's like something, I'm all about celebrations, but I am in the center. I'm making it happen. I'm the one. And
Mhm,
again, other people can bring the fun too, but I'm not going to be on the outside anymore. And that's what a lot of people with infertility talk about. It's like, looking in
mhm,
at other people enjoying their lives, having these meaningful, fulfilling lives, going to sports and church and all the things with their
mhm,
families, and like kind of looking in through this glass window, being on the outside. So I think we
mhm,
kind of have to shift that to say, like, no, I deserve happiness today. I deserve joy
mhm,
today. It doesn't mean
mhm,
that there's not going to be pain because every single moment can't be full of joy and happiness. And it's like that 50-50 of emotions. But if we say,
mhm,
number one, there will be pain, but I'm not going to turn the pain into suffering. And the suffering is when we add our stories and self judgment, and then it grows into like 10 times what the original painful insult was. So the first thing is
mhm,
pain will be there. I'm going to
mhm,
endure it the best I can. I'm going to endure it. I'm going to reach out to people. I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to have my community. Right. And then, the second part of that is to say, I actually deserve joyful moments in every day. And that can be a hard sell to people who aren't used to thinking. Like I said, even I was in that state for many years, right? But I think it's like we make our joy 10 list, we make our joy 20. If and that's the thing, like write down today 10 things that bring you joy.
mhm,
Whether it's for me, yoga always brings me joy. It just resets me. Flowers, I love being outside. If it's raining for like 7 straight days here in upstate New York, but I'm like, think of all the beautiful flowers that are going to emerge on the other side of this rain. I'm going to see the colors and get to smell them. And
Mhm,
even a cup of like coffee. Coffee is always on my gratitude list because I just love it so much. I love the scent, I love the taste, I love, the caffeine, of course. But it's like, those things that truly, and not just like, drinking it super fast on my way to something else, but like sitting and
mhm,
savoring and really appreciating how lucky I am to have this delicious coffee, on that particular morning. That's a beautiful thing. So if you can shift to really believe that you deserve joy, you deserve freedom, you deserve love,
mhm,
again, it's not going to be every second of every single day, but to seek out those micro moments because it happens in the
mhm,
micro, then we then notice more of those things and then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's like the biggest thing is to shift to really believing that we deserve it because if we don't believe that, then nothing else we say is going to make any sense. It's not going to land anywhere.
mhm. Right, but it's for me, I just want to correct a little part of that is the deserving, right? You don't have to deserve joy. It's there for you regardless, every day.
Yeah,
You just have to choose to see
that's
it,
right.
like you said, within those micro moments. It's not something you have to earn. And we were talking
Definitely
about that in the beginning too. It's like it's not something you have to earn. It's something that's given to you. It's almost on a plate. Sometimes we put our glasses on so that we don't want to see it, but
not.
there's
Right.
joyful moments throughout every day, and
That's
that
right.
you can attach to. And making those lists and being intentional about it, very important. So this was a great conversation. I wonder if we got any comments from anyone in the audience. No, I don't see any. I don't see any yet. But this is such an important conversation, and I think it will help a lot of women. So, let's do a wrap up questions. And so, who is a model of joy for you in your life? I know you answered before, but you can answer
Yeah,
again.
my children are a model
Okay.
of joy in my life just because they bring out my own inner child. We do things like we dance and we experience awe together and just we slow down. We have those moments of snuggling together. They're 12 and 10. They're the loves of my life. And so
So,
it also propels me to do the work I do because I want other people to be able to enjoy that, if that's a path that they are open to and is calling them.
mhm. And what are your top three ingredients for joy?
Oh, that's such a great question. I know you asked me this before, so I don't remember what
Mhm.
I said when you asked me a couple weeks ago. I
Change.
think, for me, there's something about being in the present moment, like presence, that is really an important element of joy. Just because if we're multitasking, if we're distracted, it's really, really hard to savor that moment. So that sort of solitary of purpose and presence in the moment. For me, joy involves some sort of love and connection, right?
Mhm, mhm,
I feel like I experience the most joy when I experience it with people I love. So that's
mhm.
really special. And I think also maybe the third element would be something related to like adventure and going out of my comfort zone because I think sometimes when I'm just like humdrum, and not to say that that joy can't happen in the mundane because it does, but I think sometimes just like trying something new or doing something a little different, being exposed to something slightly unusual can really kind of just bring us out of our routines and allow us to see things in a way that gives us some fresh eyes on a situation.
I love them. So, how does our audience contact you? What's the best way for them to reach you to be a part of your program, or if they are suffering with infertility and they would like to reach out to you? What's the best way?
Absolutely. So my website is the most comprehensive place. It's
Mhm,
loveandsciencefertility.com. I also
mhm,
have socials, so Instagram, Facebook, that's Love and Science Fertility. I have a podcast under the same name, so check out the podcast if you haven't already. I have
mhm,
a Mother's Day episode from this year and last year, which is timely given everything that's going on this week for people. It's a very complex time, and also I'm on LinkedIn. So any of those ways, send me a DM. I'd love to connect and have a call if something that you heard resonates.
mhm. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bove. And
Beautiful.
please, thank you. So, if please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast for more interesting topics where we talk about joy for high achieving professionals. And please share this episode with a friend. Take care.
Thank you.